Okay, level 4 in objective 12 is defining the domain and range given a graph. But instead, you don't have a graph, you just have an equation. So what I'm going to show you is sketching the graph, and then we'll determine the domain and range. So if you can do level 3 and level 2, this should be no problem to sketch the graph, and then it's just a matter of determining the domain and range. So in number 1, you've got y equals negative x squared minus 4. So let's first talk about the parent function. So think about what the parent function is right now. And if you said the parent function was y equals x squared, you would be correct. So I'm going to go ahead and just sketch this graph, and it's going to look like this. Whoops, let's do that a little bit better. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so there's my parent function. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this. So remember, this 4 on the outside tells me to move down 4. And then this negative here tells me to flip it. So it's going to start here, and it's going to go down this way. Okay, so now that I have my function in blue, I want the domain and the range. Remember, the domain is left to right on the x-axis. So if I look left to right, first I hit this arrow down here. Since the arrow is pointing down, the x values are going to get larger and larger and larger. So this is going to start at negative infinity because there is no endpoint. And if I keep on going, I notice that I see another arrow, which means it is going down. It's not going to negative infinity, but it's going to positive infinity because this is going to get larger and larger on the x values. So it's going to go to positive infinity. Remember, parentheses go around any infinity signs. For the range, remember, you go from low to high, and it's the y values. So our range, our low, because we're looking at arrows on the bottom, it's going to be negative infinity. Our high point is going to be right at that 4 mark, the negative 4. And you want to put a bracket because it does include the negative 4. And that's it. So your domain is from negative infinity to positive infinity, and your range is from negative infinity to negative 4. And one other note, anytime you have a quadratic, your domain will always be negative infinity to infinity. Always. Your domain will always be that. Okay? Range will be different for quadratics, but your domain will always be negative to positive infinity. Okay, number 2, we've got x minus 3 cubed plus 1. So think about the parent function in this one. Okay, so our parent function is going to be y equals x cubed. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph that. Just make a quick sketch, and this one looks like this. Okay, so now I'm going to use my transformations. This tells me I'm going to move 3 units to the right. And then this tells me I'm going to move 1 up. So here's like my center point now. I'm going to come up and out from here and down and out. Okay. All right, so looking at the red one, domain, left to right will be negative infinity to positive infinity. Your range from low to high, while it might look that these graphs even out at some point, they will never even out. They will continue to get larger and larger and larger on the y-axis. So just keep going lower and lower. It just happens slower. Same thing going up. It looks like it's going to even out, but they actually get larger and larger and larger as the x values get larger. So range for a cubic will always be negative infinity to positive infinity, and same thing with the domain. Last one that I'll take you through is y equals e to the x plus 1. This is an exponential graph, so it's going to hug the x-axis. So your parent function is y equals e to the x. So your parent function is going to look like this. It's going to hug the x-axis and come up. Okay. This 1 on the end tells me I'm going to shift up 1, so it'll look something like this. Okay. So domain. domain is negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, it tells me an arrow going all the way to the left, and this arrow will go up and out forever and ever and ever. Your range is going to be the bottom, the lowest point here. Okay, remember that I shifted up 1. So originally the parent graph comes down and it will get really close to 0 but never get there. So the parent function's range would have been from 0 to infinity, not including the 0, because it gets really close to it but never actually hits it. Since we shifted up 1, our range is now going to be from 1 to positive infinity, both with parentheses because they don't include it. It'll get really close to 1, but we'll never actually get there. Okay, so that's domain and range. There are plenty of practices on the level 4s. Go ahead and try those, check your answers, and let me know if you have any questions.